So now that I've shared my story, I'm super excited to interview you, Chloé, flip the script. So a lot of people, I'm sure, are super excited to kind of know how you became like a singer-songwriter and what that journey looked like for you, because it's not the norm. Not a lot of people do it.
It's not the norm. No. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been singing my whole life. I grew up in a household that was very musical. My dad was in bands forever. I mean, he loved to sing and write songs. He still does. And so as a kid, I was constantly hearing him singing. He would sing to my sister and I, make up songs about everything. I was really lucky to hear different genres of music, different eras of music from a very, very young age. Was listening to like Fleetwood Mac and Frank Sinatra and, literally just like so many different types of artists. And I fell in love, especially with like oldies. But anyways, I started playing piano when I was 6.
Cool.
Wrote my first song when I was 6 on piano, actually. But then I feel like I was always drawn to it for sure. Like music was just, even from like being a little kid, like I said, yes, would sing, make up songs to make my sister laugh, would sing myself to sleep at nighttime. But especially like the emotional connection with songs, even as like a 4-year-old, like I remember realizing like the depths of certain songs at an age when most kids would not understand it.
What do you mean by like understanding the depth of them?
Yeah, so for example, I'll never forget listening to Cat Stevens' Father and Son, and that's, a song about kind of, like the father-son relationship, and it's like about him kind of growing up, and it's kind of heavy, actually, and I remember listening to it like in the car and being really, really sad, but like loving that kind of that feeling, like that like emotion, and just being really drawn to it. And I wanted to hear it like over and over again. I don't know. It was just something that was like in me that like I kind of like understood. I knew that like, I even remember having like this like revelation that like one day like I was going to grow up and like I was going to move away. And like, wow. I don't know. There was just something about that story that really connected with me. And I think I've always been like obsessed with like stories too, like just in regards to writing, the writing side of things, and was always, I loved to read as a young kid for sure, but also just like write stories. Like I was always writing stories. Like when I was in 4th grade, I remember I was like kind of writing a novel. I would like in my class like add chapters to it like every day, and I did that even in like 6th grade. Like I was still like writing chapter books. So like I just loved creating like these fictitious worlds, I guess, and all these characters, and kind of like talking about their journeys and whatever they were going through, and poetry was something that I eventually became to really love too. All around this all happened like around the same time, like as elementary school. Like I always loved like creating melodies and stuff, but then the creative writing aspect was happening like alongside.
Okay.
And I think the connection between the two really happened when I was 11. I got really, really sick, similar but different situation to you. But I also ended up like losing a ton of weight from it, having to reteach myself how to eat. But I had a virus, I had a bunch of other things going on. But it was a very like lonely time for me. I had to like basically be homeschooled in 6th grade for like the remainder of my 6th grade year. I had to change schools because I looked so different, and kids are mean, and who knew what they were saying about what was going on. I kind of wanted a fresh start, and kids there were really mean, and so I was just like pretty lonely and isolated for being a kid that was very much always a social butterfly, very like involved in school and school activities and sports and all these things. And so all of a sudden, like I'm, in my house and in my bedroom and writing once again, like kind of became my friend. And at this point I had stopped getting piano lessons, but I really liked the idea of playing guitar. And my dad was like, well, you quit piano lessons, you didn't practice, so I'm not going to teach you guitar. If you really want to learn it, though, you will. So I went on YouTube, and I just learned some basic chords, like literally like 4 chords. And because I would journal, and I would try to like write out the melodies, and I realized I had nothing to play them on. I was like, I need something to play my melodies on, and something to go with these melodies I was singing and these lyrics I was writing. But I realized that like I was using it as like an outlet because I was lonely and I needed to like express my emotions, and it was like the first thing I wanted to do was get home and write and sing.
I love that.
It made me it made me feel, I think, alive, and it made me feel like this kind of like relief.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a place for me to go to kind of like get out of my head in a way. And yeah, and so it kind of really started there at 11. But like I said, well, maybe you didn't hear it because it got cut off in the other episode we tried to record before, but music was never like forced upon me just because I grew up around it at all. And I definitely wasn't the kid that was like doing, like going to state fairs, like singing at state fairs and singing cover songs and like, you know what I mean? Like that was never me. Like I did the talent show like once a year. I did a piano recital here and there, those sort of things. But I was really like singing in my bedroom. Like I did some choir in the church, but like I was not the kid that was like center of attention as far as, really just like, singing all over the stage. Like that wasn't me at all. I was like really a bedroom singer. Like when I was a toddler, I probably was like in people's faces and singing along, but really for me, like, yeah, it wasn't like that. I loved to write and sing, and I would do it in my room, and then I would like share it with my parents. And then when I got to high school, I started, or maybe around 8th grade actually, I got a Facebook. And when I got Facebook, I realized I could share it with the world from my bedroom. So I started, singing. I mean, it was a mixture of just like songs that I liked on the radio, and I would sing to my camera, and I would post them to my page, and then I would suddenly start sharing like the songs I was writing on my guitar, and I'd go to school, and people would come up to me and be like, oh, I really liked your song, or like I really related to your song, and I just thought that was the coolest thing because I wasn't writing it for anybody else at the time, I was really just, like I said, using it as like therapy, and the fact that somebody else related to it was the first time I kind of had this connection of like, oh my gosh, like people relate to my stuff, like how is that happening? So yeah, that's kind of a long-winded way to answer the question, but that was kind of like the very, very early start of how I got into music. And then obviously when I went to college, that's really when my career started. So I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah. So you started it, and it was kind of something that was like your whole family's musical, and now you're kind of like, kind of creating this stuff that you're finding people are relating with. So what made you want to take it to the next level? Because obviously there was something in you that you're like, I want to pursue this as a career, right? Like I want to do this big time.
Exactly. Yeah. So like even in 3rd grade, I knew I wanted to be a singer. Like I remember like they had us like write down on a piece of paper like what we wanted to be, and I drew a picture of Britney Spears. So it was definitely something that like always I was like, this is what I need to do. Like I really did know, and like I said, was drawn to music like more than most kids are from like a very young age. And I have a sister, and she likes music, but she's not as like obsessed with it as I am. So that just says something in itself. But as far as like really taking it to like the next level, I think probably I was like 15 or 16, because like I said, people in high school were starting to like tell me they really liked my music or they related to it, and I was like, well, maybe I should record some of this stuff, like just get like a couple songs. And my dad had a friend who had done some recording before. He'd record actually some of like Hilary Duff's like first
really?
stuff,
That's so cool.
I loved Hilary Duff. Yeah, and like Selena Gomez, and I was like, oh,
I love both of them.
And Yeah. And so he was so kind, and he was kind enough to help me produce like 3 little just demos, like very basic demos of songs that I had written. And once I got those recorded, I think it was the first step of having something tangible. It just became more real. It was like, oh, this is my voice recorded, you know? Like, yeah, there was something about it. I could send it out to people. Like, this is what I sound like, you know what I mean? Besides just like performing, once again at talent shows. I had never played a show before. Like, I didn't play a show until I had moved to college. Like, I just played like the talent show every year, like just to give people some like perspective here. I was playing in my room. And so then when it was like talks about college, like I knew I wanted to go. I really did. But I also knew that I wanted to pursue music. And I figured, well, why not find a place that kind of has the ability to let me do both and makes the most sense to do both and supports kind of that dream, but still allows me to go to college. And Belmont University is in Nashville, and I was drawn to the idea that it was somewhere new that I had never been, and also right next to like where all the labels are and publishing companies, and I would be around kids who did what I did for the first time. And so it was really between Nashville or maybe like USC, Thornton School of Music here in LA, which is where I'm from. And so I was like, I can either stay here if I even got into USC, which is just a very expensive and difficult school to get into. And Belmont is a private school as well. But I was like, I feel like I should give a new place, you know, some attention here. Like, I feel like it would help me grow as a person just growing up in California. And also, like, I grew up in, like, a little beach town in California. So I grew up in LA, but it's still, like, I wasn't, like, joyriding around, like, the streets of Los Angeles and, like, really, like, you know, meeting other people that did what I did. And so Nashville is such a small town that I thought it would be a good idea to kind of be forced to be around all those people. And kind of, I knew that I loved California so much. I had a feeling that I would still end up here, at least for some of my career. And so I figured, why not go away to kind of like experience something else and just see what it's like. Which was scary at first, obviously. Nashville's completely different. It's the South. It's totally different. So I moved there. I studied music business. I really wanted to get a business degree as much as I didn't want to take finance classes. And
who does?
I was like, I really just, I don't know, I wanted to have like this business background because I think for me, I've always had this idea of having kind of like a multi-layered career, which is beyond just the creative. As much as like I only want to, you know, in my dream world, focus on the creative, like I know that there's a bunch of other sides of the industry and things that I want to do that require having this like business mindset, which naturally, like, I don't think I have. I'm more, like I said, very creative and not type A at all. And so having to kind of teach myself how to be that way was something I had to intentionally do. And so I decided to study music business. And then alongside that, I got my first internship at Sun Records. That was my first one, which is where, you know, Elvis and Johnny Cash and
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, definitely. So I started immediately working while I was starting school, and would take like the bus to my internship, and then eventually also would start like after school doing like co-writing sessions, which is obviously where you write with other people. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. Like my whole life I had written by myself. So that was really interesting to suddenly get to collaborate with different people and kind of learn the differences between writing that way as opposed to writing by yourself, because it is a little bit different, and kind of swap ideas and stuff. But yeah, I kind of started there, went to Belmont for 4 years, worked at Black River Entertainment, which is a record label and publishing company, and got to really see Kelsey Ballerini, for anybody listening who knows her music, her develop as an artist, which was really, really cool, and see her go from having like literally like less Instagram followers than I did to having hundreds of thousands, millions of followers,
Wow.
which is really, really cool, and watch that journey. So being, you know, a student in school and getting to see like the process of how that happened and how she developed was really, really awesome and inspiring for me as I'm building my career at the same exact time.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a different college experience because, you know, I did know what I wanted to do. So a lot of people go to college and they don't, and that's perfectly fine, but I did. And so not only am I, you know, pursuing that career alongside going to school, but I'm trying to be involved in school. So I joined like a sorority, trying to like
Aww.
be involved, but at the same time, you know, trying to balance, you know, an actual job and internships and my career. And it was a lot, but I think it really helped me become a better independent artist in the end.
Yeah.
Because now I'm used to juggling a million things at once and wearing all these different hats. And it's definitely helped my career a ton. When I was a junior, I finally released my first EP. Finally, like, really played my first show, which is crazy. It's like, how did you make it through the first year without playing a show? I think it was my second year that I started playing. But I really wanted to, I think I was still figuring out like who I was like as an artist too, and
For
the type
sure.
of music. My puppy's making an appearance.
Hey.
Hey, Willow!
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Willow. But yeah, oh geez, what am I saying? She's on my cords. I started. Oh yeah, I released an EP. So my junior year, I finally released an EP. That was really exciting, and then I released a single called Indian Summer, and at this time was starting to build a fan base. And it really, like, I said, moved to college, hadn't created a fan base at all, was just starting my career.
Yeah. What did that look like to build a fan base? Like because you're going from somebody who's gone from school and you're just hiding, well, not hiding in your bedroom, but kind of just putting your music out from your bedroom to now you're really putting yourself out there. You've got this business mindset. What was that like?
Yeah, for me, well, I think once I discovered, like in 8th grade, what Facebook was and that I could share with the world and that people actually related to my stuff, that was like so huge for me, getting to be like honest and vulnerable with people. And so then I remember there was an app called Pic Collage, and Pic Collage was a collage making app, but it also was like social media. Okay. And so I think I had a friend who had the app or something, and they were like, you'd be really great on this. So I started posting on Pic Collage. And it was one of those apps where parents didn't know that it was like also social media. So kids had this app from like all over the world, and they were using it, and their parents are just thinking they're using like collage, making collages, but they're actually like posting on like a public platform basically. Yeah. And so it was a really cool thing, because what it allowed me to do was like you could basically put like a YouTube video like in your collage without it like redirecting you to YouTube, and so kids could watch my music videos. So I'd released a music video called Indian Summer, and started posting it on there, and all of a sudden, like literally, I mean, within a couple months, it went from like 0 followers to like 300,000 followers.
Wow.
Like crazy, because nobody else was doing that on the app at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool because I was building fans from like all over the world through this app. The only interesting thing was that those kids oftentimes didn't have Instagram because they were too young, or some of them did, so it would like translate over. But part of the thing that really worked for Pic Collage, and what I ended up kind of taking over to the other social media platforms, was this idea of like really connecting with these people, and I would respond to like every single kid, and I would, you know, like individually message everybody and make sure to comment back and have this like interaction. And it was so surprising to me because so many kids would be like, oh my gosh, she's like actually responding. And it blew my mind that there are so many people that don't do that don't like, you know, and they felt. It was, and I remember having a little girl talk to me about having depression, and I was just like, whoa, the fact that she even feels like safe. It kind of was alarming, honestly, because I was like, I'm just a stranger. You don't actually know me. You feel safe to share this with me. But like, how can I be an asset to you, knowing that like I'm definitely not an expert at all in mental health or like, should be handing out advice, but I can be somebody who's a friend, and I can be like, an example and motivating, and so eventually, like on Instagram too, like started being very, very like interactive, just like with people on there, and of course, like it starts trickling over from that platform, which was really, really cool. And then I had a bunch of different little like online radio stations start adding my song, and from there, Radio Disney. Somehow I came across people at Radio Disney. This is when I was in college, not signed at all, and got asked to go to LA, back home to LA, and come into Radio Disney. And at the time, Radio Disney Country was just starting out. And it was really cool because I wasn't expecting anything the day that like I came to have an interview with them, but I sat down, thought they were going to ask me a couple questions, like see you later, but I was there, did the interview. They ended up like adding Indian Summer. I was like their first unsigned artist that they added the song to, and they ended up adding the video to Disney Channel. And so when that happened too, that obviously was a huge thing for my career. And then right around that same time, I had a song that was in an end title of a movie of a Lionsgate movie called The Great Billy Hopkins that I'd written. And that was really cool too. So like things just kind of like started flowing.
Very similar.
Very similar. Yes, exactly. Yet like I still was, I think, you know, the main difference was still figuring myself out, still pretty young. And still being in school was a really interesting dynamic too, because I'll never forget I was nannying and like scrubbing the floor because some kid, one of them had like spilled something, one of the little kids, and she, all of a sudden I'm like hearing my song. And my video is like on Disney Channel. It's like playing on Disney Channel, and I'm scrubbing the floor, and I was just like, this is hilarious, because people on like the internet thought I was like rich. They thought I was like famous. Because you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, like people, there's this like perception of like, oh, you're, you know what I mean? Like you're famous because you're on TV. When I was like, no, I'm nannying for like $15, you know? And like scrubbing the floor. So it's funny, but it definitely like obviously kept me humble and kept me working really hard, because that's, you know, the industry is very much like that. You have these highs, but you have reality too at the same time.